Renee is a very unique and special individual. The way she conducts herself and the way she touches people's life, one is made to believe that they are the only special people and friend in her life.
Renee is a whirlwind of passion for whatever project she takes on, no matter how small or how big. And I think her impact is that you can really trust her to know that if she says that she will lead something, or she will spearhead an effort, or she will take something on, you know it will be done. You don't, as someone who's an executive director, you don't have to worry about it, and it will be done with the best of taste.
I think she's just somebody who's dedicated to seeing other people advance and do well, and is there to help them in any way that she can.
ReneeHamad was born Renee Perlot on May 9, 1944 in Cairo, Egypt, to French parents, Emmanuel and Nini Perlot. She was the oldest of 2 children, her brother 5 years younger.
She was beautiful, very talented, very smart, and the princess of her father. Her father used to call her my little princess.
As a young girl, Renee lived a life of wealth and privilege.
My grandfather had started buying some quarries, and he built a factory that grinds stones. He made cement, he made the powder called kaolin, which is entered in rice in Cairo, so in Egypt, to protect it from bugs. He made talcum powder. They had an office, they had 4 cars, drivers. They were very, very wealthy.
Her father, an only child, inherited the quarries. He was a dapper man, known for his hand-tailored sharkskin suits.
Sharkskin is a material that's white and shiny, and it was very, very expensive. The author of a book called The Man in the Sharkskin Suit, Lisette Lanyadoo. The Lanyadoo family is very close to my family, and the way she describes her dad in the book is my dad.
Renee was raised in a protected and sheltered environment.
I had a governess. My brother had a governess. We had a cook. I was not allowed to go get a glass of water. I had to ring a bell and it was brought to me. I never had to pay for anything. It was like Queen Elizabeth. I go in the store and then I find it in my room. And to this day I am to blame for my eccentricities. I have no sense of money. It's a problem.
Her mother was a renowned musician, a student of famed pianist Ignace Tigerman, and toured internationally as a concert pianist. As a child, Renee's relationship with her parents was very formal.
I almost had to have appointments to see them. My mother was a concert pianist and was practicing and giving concerts and very busy, and my dad was traveling to check on the quarries. They had a very active social life. Us children were not allowed to be seen, or if we were invited, we were not allowed to talk unless we were addressed. My father would give me actually courses on how to behave at a table, how to eat a chicken with a fork and knife, how to debone fish.
While she lived a strict existence, she had many special moments of joy with her family.
My grandparents were very formal people. My grandmother was gorgeous. She was always beautifully dressed, jewelry, necklaces, wonderful. My joy was to go there when I was 3 and 4 and sit on the floor and open her buttons. She had buttons, collections of buttons, amazing. Jewelry, bracelets. All I wanted to do was play with her jewelry and her collections.
When Renee was 5 years old, she was enrolled in the Conservatory of Music, labeled a gifted child, and trained to be a concert pianist under the tutelage of Ignace Tigerman.
I was not allowed to play or have fun with classmates. I had to study 4 hours of piano a day.
Renee also studied ballet. While she was a very talented dancer, her mother insisted she focus her talents on piano. She continued to study piano at the Royal Conservatory of London, graduating with honors. At age 11, she performed with the Cairo Symphony Orchestra. Her early elementary education was at the French Lycée School in Cairo. In her middle school years, her parents enrolled her in the convent of the Mother of God.
I was the only Jewish girl in a convent of 500 girls. Half were Christians and half were Muslims. And my aunt happened to be the Mother Superior, so she would take me with her every morning to church to protect me so I would not be left alone wandering the hallways.
When she was 17 years old, she entered the American University in Cairo with a full scholarship majoring in political science economics.
I lost my scholarship very quickly into the game because I did not speak English. My mother tongue is French, and I had to struggle to make a C.
On her first day at the university, she met a handsome young Palestinian by the name of Sam Hamad.
He was a junior and he was my advisor, and I asked for his help to fill out the forms on orientation day because I had never filled out a form, and I asked for his help genuinely, and of course he thought, yeah, right. But it was true, and so he helped me fill out the forms.
Sam was smitten and immediately devised a plan to take Renee out on a date that night.
The way he coaxed me into accepting to go out with him was he lied to me. He told me that his best friend had a girlfriend for the first time and he wanted to take her out and he needed a chaperone and asked if I would help out. In fact, he was talking about us.
Not being permitted to date, Renee told her mother she was going to an orientation dinner with the president of the university.
So the driver took me to the university and came back and picked me up at 10 p.m. In between those 3 hours, we went dancing.
Renee and Sam grew closer each day. At the university, her life was filled with challenges and excitement, and her relationship with Sam was growing stronger. However, her fairy tale existence was about to come to a dramatic end. In October 1961, Egyptian President Nasser embarked on a major nationalization program, believing the total adoption of socialism was the answer to his problems of unrest among the Egyptian people. By 1962, as a result of these measures, government ownership of Egyptian business reached 51%. Renee's father's business was one of those taken over by the government. One evening, not long after the nationalization of his company, Egyptian soldiers knocked on their door and escorted her father away.
And we didn't know if we were going to see him alive. And 3 days and 3 nights went by. And he came back. And he said, "Don't ask me where I was." He said 2 other men were picked up. They were Muslims, they were not Jews. And he said they came back in coffins with a red wax. So we were lucky.
Her family went from wealthy aristocrats to outcasts. The government would not permit her father to operate his business. Renee and her mother did what they could to provide income to the household.
I went to work for the French Librairie Hachette because they knew us and they paid me under the table. And I brought back 15 pounds, which is nothing, but for us it was good. And my mother taught at the music school where we all grew up, and she was able to bring money that way to the house, and that's how we were able to eat. Because they said, we don't care what you do, you can go steal, but you're not allowed to go to your office. The bank accounts were frozen, that was it. We had no money.
In 1965, Renee and her family were expelled from Egypt. With no money, they looked to an American organization for help.
The highest, which is an American Jewish agency, which pays passage of immigrants like us to either Israel or America, paid for our passage on a ship that left Cyprus, and we were at the bottom of the ship which is quite different from our travel days now. We were at the bottom, and we were all together, huddled together in one little cabin. And we made it to Marseille, and from Marseille they put us on a train to Paris. And I was allowed to work for that agency. I was a switchboard receptionist, Girl Friday, because I can type very quickly because of my piano dexterity. I had taken lessons in shorthand in English, so I could do that. I couldn't speak it, but I could read and write.
For the next 4 months, as they awaited their visas to enter the United States, Renee helped her family survive with her meager income, along with a small stipend provided by the agency.
They were given $5 a day, each one of us. And my little salary supplemented that, and we were able to all eat in that one room in a little hotel in Montmartre. The floor was slanted. We had mice in the room. They were our friends. And all the immigrants that left with us that time would come over and we'd share an omelet. My mother would make whatever, sausages. Those were fun days. They were honest days.
With their visas approved in June of 1965, the family headed for Boston, Massachusetts, aboard a chartered flight.
We were sponsored by my uncle, and he was a physician in Boston. And so you have to picture me leaving Paris in a coat in June. My parents had smuggled sterling silver sewn into the hem of my coat. So I was trying to walk all the way up to the plane on the tarmac, sweating bullets because it was 100 degrees that day. And my father kept saying, "Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up." I couldn't walk fast enough for him, but I couldn't move. The coat was so heavy with flatware.
The day after the family arrived in Boston, Renee's aunt was able to secure her a position with the Prudential Insurance Agency as a secretary.
I had a very strong accent, and my English was very poor, but I could type very quickly. I was a good Girl Friday. I could file, I could do shorthand.
At this time, unknown to her parents, Renee had been secretly corresponding with Sam. Sam had graduated from the American University in Cairo 2 years earlier and had left Cairo for Canada, working in the pharmaceutical industry as a sales representative for Merck. Sam had a plan for Renee and him.
When I got to Boston, a month later, he came to get me, and we eloped. I eloped. When I went to my boss of 1 month and I told him I was leaving, I offered to give back my salary because I felt bad. He had paid for my employment, and he absolutely not. He heard my story, started crying. He said no, and he gave me a bonus. A nice man. And so we left. We had to go to a store because we had to buy me underwear, a nightgown, a toothbrush. He even bought me a bottle of perfume. I guess he wanted to make sure I smelled good.
The couple went to a motel in Cambridge, Massachusetts for their honeymoon night. Shortly thereafter, they were to leave for Canada. But before they got on the train, Sam saw something was amiss with the paperwork.
The morning of our departure, he looked at a certificate he was holding, and he said, "My goodness, there's a square here, look." And he looked, and it said signature of the priest, Rabbi, Justice of the Peace, and it was blank. So he said, "You know we're not married." Oh my God, that meant we were sinning. And I said, "Oh my God, what are we going to do? God is going to punish us." And he said, "No, we're going to look at the yellow pages. We're going to go see somebody, a justice of the peace." So sure enough, we found them. We found one on Mass Avenue, and we drove there. And it was a woke-up 4th floor. The man was deaf, was very, very old, could hardly see, he had very thick glasses, and it was just like in the movies. It was a little office with a roof over his head, one light bulb, and I didn't speak English, so he was mumbling something, and I was mumbling after him. And in lieu of a wedding band, I just wore my grandmother's ring.
With their wedding ceremony fulfilled and the certificate in hand, they headed for the border. But before they could pass, they were stopped by the customs agent.
Customs officer said, "Halt, where do you think you're going?" where's her visa? And my husband said, what visa? Well, I said, you know, you're entering a different country here. And he said, well, I went to Toronto and they told me that she doesn't need a visa. Well, no such luck. He said, first of all, we're going to isolate you both. And they wanted to verify our story. And then they said, okay, we'll tell you what, you're honest, you're sincere. We're going to call Toronto tomorrow and we'll find out if it's true that you went and everything you say is right. We will call you in the morning, and but you have to pay for the call. And we said, we'll pay for the call. And of course, he said, we'll call you at 7 a.m. Where did we go? We went to buy books. We sat in bed in a motel by the border with a stack of books as if we were going to read. And sure enough, the next morning at 7 a.m., they called us and they said, all right, come on.
3 months later, the couple had a formal wedding in Toronto.
It was in November, the end of November. The only person who could be present was his brother, who arrived from the Middle East. His parents' best friend was my father, walked me through the aisle. A very dear friend was my matron of honor. She and her husband were a friend of Sam. I hadn't met them before. My parents could not cross the border because when you come to this country, at those days, I don't know if it's still true, for 3 years you're not allowed to cross the border until you get your green card.
With Sam working for Merck and traveling throughout Canada, Renee soon found a job in the publishing business for Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston, editing French publications. In 1967, Sam was transferred to Montreal.
I worked for Collins & Aikman, which was a company that made carpeting for commercial carpeting, for upholstery, for airplanes, and I was the secretary to the president of the firm.
2 years later, Renee left the position when her first child, Karen, was born on August 30th, 1969.
Sam had wanted a boy. He was upset. But when he saw her, he melted away. And so we moved to the suburbs, and we stayed there for 9 months. And then we were transferred to Scotch Plains, New Jersey.
2 years later, their son Michael was born on February 14, 1972. With a growing family, the couple purchased their first home in Westfield, New Jersey, shortly after Michael's birth. For the next 3 years, Renee was a full-time mother and homemaker. But with Sam constantly on the road with his work, she wanted to find another outlet. In 1975, she joined Lincoln Federal Savings and Loan in Westfield as a records clerk. She was doing very well at her job when one afternoon in 1977, she was crossing the street and was struck by a school bus.
She was up and down on the floor. She was 3 days in coma. I thought I'm going to lose her.
The first thing I remember was that I had a mask on my face, and I was escorted out of bed and helped out by nurses, and they said, we're going to take you to the bathroom. Don't look in the mirror. Well, all you have to do is be told, don't look, and you look. I fainted.
Renee had a long recovery. She was left with a permanent loss of memory. However, she overcame the obstacles and continued her work with the bank. She was promoted to a manager in 1981. While she enjoyed her work, she did not permit it to interfere with raising her children.
The reason I also wanted to work in a bank is that at 3 o'clock I was home with them. I never believed in just leaving them alone. Either I had a sitter or I was home.
She was a great mom. She was very involved, always around, sewed our clothes when we were little, cooked all our meals, taught us how to speak French. She was a great mom.
We also didn't have much money, and I did the housework. I cooked, I laundered, I ironed, I did everything. So I know what it's like not to have money.
She played piano and actually gave concerts all the way through my childhood. She used to do the junior league in New Jersey and always concertized for them. She was at every school thing we ever had, every recital, every play.
She was always supportive of no matter what we wanted to do. You know, I always said I wanted to be a doctor, and she always thought that was amazing, but my nails always had to be done and my hair always had to be done regardless of how many hours I was in the lab because you always have to look good too.
In 1985, Sam was now with Bristol Myers Squibb and was promoted to president of divisions in Canada. Once again, the family was on the move. It was difficult for Renee to leave the job and the community she loved.
In February, we bought our beach house, and in June, Sam was transferred. So I had to quit, much to my regret. I thought, I can't stop my career. And my husband said, it didn't occur to him that what I thought was, okay, we'll split. I'm not going to Canada again. And he said, can we live on your salary like we will live on mine? And then I felt very guilty because he had never envisioned what I envisioned. So I went along and resigned, and they gave me a lovely party, and then we left. And every summer after that, I spent the summers at the beach house, and he would commute. We were transferred to Ottawa. And in retrospect, they were very happy years.
Sam's career would continue to grow. Promoted to president of Division of Asia, Australasia in 1988 and Europe in 1990, where the couple traveled throughout Europe and lived for a time in London. In 1992, Sam took over the international division and he and Renee moved to Paris. It was a significant difference from her earlier days in Paris when the family was leaving Egypt.
We lived there in grand style in the 16th arrondissement, a 5,000 square meter apartment that took up a whole floor, 2 living rooms, a den, a library, 4 bedrooms. It was just he and I because the kids had left, but that's what we chose.
In 1998, Sam was ready to retire. The family had vacationed on Longboat Key, and Sam thought this would be the perfect place for retirement. Renee was not so sure.
And I said, you can't trade Longboat Key for Paris over my dead body. I'm done. No. He said, okay, what would you say if I buy you a little pied-à-terre and then we'll trade this way? And I thought about it, and I didn't think it was a fair trade. But I went along, and so we have a pied-à-terre in the 6th arrondissement, which I'm very grateful for. We've had it for 11 years. And we bought our first house on Mistletoe Lane in Longboat Key.
A few years later, they purchased an estate on Sarasota Bay. That same year, her mother came to live in a house on the grounds. Renee soon became involved in the community of Sarasota. First was a request by the Junior League to place her home on the Christmas tour. From that point, she and Sam became involved in a myriad of organizations.
Well, Renee is involved in many things. She's very curious. So wherever she sees an organization that is a charitable organization that she feels needs support, she's there, you know. She doesn't wait to be invited. She wants to find out what's going on. So it won't be always the YMCA or the big organizations that have a lot of backing. She'll seek out the smaller ones.
It's part of her being. She will give as much as she can give. I've seen her, someone has actually commented and said, I love your earrings. And she's taken the earrings out of her ears and given them to people.
And the advancement of women is very close to Renee's heart, and the boards that she's involved in, Women's Resource Center, Second Chance, Last Opportunity, very close to her heart, and I think they are great beneficiaries of her time and talent.
She serves as a volunteer every Monday at the Women's Resource Center. She also is on our board of directors and has served in many capacities raising money and supporting all the programs of the Women's Resource Center.
She would come to the Ballet and help us receiving calls and, you know, guiding visitors and things like that for, you know, a few hours during the week. We have a lot of volunteers that do that. And then eventually she joined the board of directors, which was great because she's a very cultured person, and so her influence was really good on other board members, you know.
For Sam, retirement was short-lived. Bored with golf, he soon became involved in developing properties and building high-rises. In 2008, Renee decided she would return to college to acquire her bachelor's degree in human development and enrolled in Eckerd College.
I worked very hard. The courses were 5:30 to 10:30, and that's how I think my social life really expanded. I met people from all walks of life, and one person would introduce me to another.
Renee's studies were interrupted by the illness and subsequent death of her beloved Sam.
I had to quit the last 6 months of his life because he had cancer of the liver, and he was on the waiting list for a transplant. And because of his high profile, he was kind of bumped up, and I was on call. I could not leave town. I could not take a commitment because if you're in class, there were 8-week sessions. You're not allowed to lose more than one. You lose the whole course.
She needed to drop her classes for that semester, but she had paid tuition for the entire semester, and we would gladly have given her a refund or left that money on account to pay tuition when she returned to finish up. But she contacted me and she said, "Do you know of any other student who's in financial need who could use this money, because I'm not going to use it this semester and I'd like it to help somebody else." And that's just one example of many times when I saw her reach out and help somebody else.
After Sam's death in December 2008, Renee was thrown into learning the intricacies of his business and finance. After a time of solace, she found an outlet by returning to school to pursue her goal of obtaining her degree.
After 3 months went by, I thought, my mother is a disciplinarian. If I were a kid, she'd kick me in the butt and say, "Get going." So I pulled myself together and went back.
Renee graduated in May 2009 Phi Beta Kappa with a bachelor's degree in human development. As of 2011, ReneeHamad is focused on her business affairs. With the death of her mother in November 2010, she devotes much of her energy to her children and grandchildren, spending quality time with them and looking forward to their future. Of course, she continues to support a variety of organizations in the Sarasota community, both with her talents and treasure.
Having not always had what I have today, I know what it's like to be hungry. It's important to give back and help the less fortunate, and it's not so much because it's part of the community. Having lost my roots, I am very lucky to be part of a community. It's very special to me.
We asked Renee her advice for those who follow.
To be successful, I believe you need to persevere. Give yourself a goal and stick to it, and persevere and focus, and don't ever give up hope.